Yeah, hi everybody. This is a repeat recording for the somewhat mishmash roundtable we had this morning. Still having troubles with Zoom webinar. Lots of complaints into the customer service support people. So I think we're going to dump it and use something else. It was so bad this morning and so much kind of, scratching of heads and confusion. And people who were logging on stepping over me as the presenter and getting the screen and the microphone, that I decided to dump that recording and shoot a whole other one, which I can of course promptly send out to everybody. So it's got some advantage as well. I don't want people to get lazy though. I think the important thing about the roundtable meeting is it's live. It's interactive, and I don't want it to drift in the direction of everybody just sits waiting for a recording, because there won't be a recording if I'm just talking to myself on a Saturday morning, or just, one or two or three people. Anyway, okay, so I've made my point. This is supposed to be newsy stuff, and we certainly had a very newsy meeting this morning. Got a nice story from friend Malcolm, for example, about how he'd been doing just since some of the introductory work that we had. I was discussing with him and friend Hydran over in Copenhagen the new intake form. Well, it's relatively new. I've been developing it for several years. But the latest incarnation, which only goes back about 3 months, is actually very powerful. And it draws a person in really, quite a remarkable way, just pulls them into the case. For example, one of the lead questions is, did your life go wrong at some particular point? Whoa, my God, yes. For many people, that's like a woo, a big meter read on that one. Yes, definitely. Or, when did your life hit the lowest point? Identify that point and describe it. Well, a person who's trying to describe when life was at its lowest ebb is already, in my view, starting to do piloting. And that's reflected in the fact that the GSR meter, the monitor, the biofeedback monitor that we use when we're piloting, got a huge responses just to the questions on this simple form. So that was part of a three-way discussion that it is not easy now to recreate. But, you'll get news on it from time to time. The important thing that I was wanting to share was the arrival of punk psychology. Now, I talked for a few minutes about my my understanding of the word punk. I've got to tell you that punk rock back in the 70s or 80s maybe? It was so utterly revolting, I rejected it completely. And these young fellows who were just snots that dressed in filthy clothes, they had abominable language, smoked, drank, took drugs to excess, and didn't even have musical talents like the Beatles and people like that. They just screamed and shrieked and swore abusive words in front of a microphone in time with the music. I thought it was utterly revolting. But history has been ironic, I mean, two of the Sex Pistols, for example, are now dead. Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious, they're gone. Their revolting lifestyle finally caught up on them, I guess. But, ironically, my dear wife Vivian, is really good friends with the wife of one of the Sex Pistols, the drummer, Paul Cook. Vivian's friend Jenny Cook, they met on a nutrition course together, and although Paul looks a bit heavily worn by his life as a rock and roll star and drugs and lifestyle abuses and all the things that they did, he's still alive and healthy, largely due to the fact that Jenny understands nutrition and she's looking after him. And I actually had lunch one time with Paul Cook. So from not liking them at all to actually lunching with one of them. Life has its ironies, okay? But of course nowadays punk really doesn't just mean, revolting and safety pins through the nose or your nipples or whatever they did. Now it just really means off-center, basically, counterculture, not part of the norm, rather shocking, revolutionary, challenging, certainly original. And my Hypnoetics procedures and psychology are certainly all of those. So in a sense, they become punk psychology. And in fact, I've had a book cover designed, which I should be able to possibly overlay this. Anyway, if I can't, it doesn't matter. I'll send it out as an attachment with email. We've got the cover designed. Looks rather good, actually, rather wonderful, I've got to say. And everyone's been very positive about this title, Punk Psychology. And lots of people who otherwise probably wouldn't have bothered have said, well, I'd certainly, stop and pick up a book that said that. I'd want to know what that was. What could that be? Punk psychology. So maybe we've just hit on the right thing. Now, it's important to say that the word hypnoetics is still there to stay. Hypnoetics is the sort of basic beginners, introduction to supernoetics and piloting, to the deep psychology, spiritual philosophy and practical spiritual philosophy that we do. Hypnoetics is the start, and I've said it in the book, which is, I'm going to talk about the book in a minute, that it sounds a bit like hypnotism. That's not entirely a coincidence, but it's not hypnotism so much as the opposite. We're sort of unhypnotizing people so that people can get their attention dragged off the points where they're stuck on the timeline, freeing up attention units and bringing the person more into the present, in other words. So the word hypnoetics is there to stay. That the title Punk Psychology is, well, it's what the marketing people call a hook, something to hook a person onto and drag them in so that they listen to what you've got to say. So it's still hypnoetics, but Punk Psychology is the sort of, if you like, the front of house label that people will see. Hope nobody on my list gets offended by this. I hope everyone thinks it's uproariously funny and arresting, just to hold your attention as a title. Excuse me. Anyway, that brings me to the launch of Punk Psychology. First of all, I've got a Punk Psychology page on Facebook, and I'd like everyone that sees this video to go there and like the page. We have to get about 30 or 40 likes, I understand, before Facebook will start to promote it and make it known to other people. So I'd ask you to do that if you would. It's facebook.com/punk psychology. And that's all lowercase and no gaps or dashes or dots, just Punk Psychology as one word. And in there, you'll also find, and those of you who are watching this, I'd like you to join a Punk Psychology group on Facebook. Now listen, I'm no Facebook expert. I think what you have to do is log into your account, and then you, in the search box for the whole of Facebook, you'll have to type Punk Psychology group. And then when you get to it, enroll, make yourself known. You don't have to do anything, but those of you who are masters of Facebook, plus you know something about what we do in Supernoetics, are actually free to share with others, and I'd appreciate it if you would. That's not going to be run entirely by me, and I'd welcome input from other people. I shall just simply moderate it. Excuse me, I had a double coffee this morning, so I've got a little catarrh here on the vocal cords. Okay, so what was planned here was that I'd be doing a series of introductory webinars, free webinars, and I'm still going to do that, by the way. I'm not taking this away. But that was originally the purpose of the whole thing, and I was writing up what were in fact sections of a manual so that people would download it, read it, and then we'd meet on a webinar and people would practice the techniques and so on. That was the idea. Still there. But what actually happened is that in writing these sections and thinking, oh, well, they need that, and they're going to need that, and they're going to need that, and so on, then I've written a whole book. I've got a 62,000 word book. And so I decided we'd see that right through to completion. So instead of, downloading the pages, we practice, and if all is good, then make it up into a book. We'll start with a book. We can always change and edit books these days, print on demand. You can do several hundred of a book, and if you don't like it, you can change the order of the chapter, take a chapter out, add another chapter. It is no problem. So that's what I've done. So we're actually within just a very few days of actually going to the designer to have the book layout set up and be ready to print. So look out for that anyway. That's going to be an exciting moment. As I said, we're going to continue with the plan of holding free webinars. It'll be weekly, and there will be, it will go section by section. You see, that's another reason for finishing up the book, really, is because some people won't want to wait. Some people will immediately see the immense power and originality and excitement of what we're doing. I mean, it's just stunning. Within an hour, 2 hours, we're totally changing and transforming people's lives. Not to finish, not to say, well, that's your hour, you've had a big awakening, that's good, bye-bye. It's that the person gets really excited with the start of the process and realizing there's more to come. We don't just start by feeling better about tough times in the past. We can eventually clear out all the tough times in the past quite quickly. The next thing you know, his memory is expanding and the person's remembering earlier lives all over the place, and they're starting to do out-of-body things. In other words, they're suddenly manifesting themselves as a non-material being, which is what we truly are. And that's what my Supernoetics researchers have shown. And people are getting absolutely stunned and knocked out with what's happening, blown out. A person... it's happened that people can suddenly see through walls. They go transparent and the person in front of them is transparent. We can't hang on to these states just yet, but we've got there. So that puts us way ahead of all these sort of guru models. I said that in this morning's talk too. I'm not a guru. I don't want to be the guru. I'm the guy that does the researches. I'm the front guy. I can talk. I can write. I know I can write well. And that's going to be my legacy. What I need now is somebody who can manage things for me, and that would be our guru. Only we don't call that person a guru these days. You call them the chief executive officer worldwide. The person that's running the show and calling the shots. And any of you, get to the point where you understand what we're doing and the power of mission, and would like to be the chief executive officer. Do let me know. Now listen, I've reminded myself of something else before I finish, and this is a rather marvelous scene. I don't think you can see this. I think it's just focused on me, so I'll read from it, but this is from one of my inspiring, if you like, sources, John Rappaport. John Rappaport is a most amazing investigative reporter. The stuff he comes up with. He's also very spiritual, and I think he's more than halfway there with what we're doing in Supernoetics. And he writes a lot about spirit, not necessarily calling it spirit, but, non-material mind and imagination and the non-material matrix, all of those things. And just before I started to do this recording, in fact, after the earlier failed round table webinar, this actually came through, and it's wonderful. He's asking a very intriguing question, and I'm asking it of you, really. Think of this for yourself. What would be your best invention? Now, he's making the point, I'm not talking about a machine or a device or something that will open up your nasal passages or whatever, anything. It's basically just an invention of your future. And one of the powerful things that I teach people and make them aware of is that your life is really measured, insofar as you can measure a life, by what was there after you're gone or before you're gone, but what was there that wasn't there before you began. So you brought it into being. That's creativity, of course, in its fullest sense, and it's a very important definition of a person's life. I want my legacy to be not just the medical wisdom I've been sharing for years, but actually I want a worldwide movement given to understanding the nature of non-material being and having techniques and procedures. Some of it's eclectic, I've got it from here, there and everywhere, but there are also masses of completely original materials and techniques that I use. Anyway, back to Rappaport's email. What would be your best invention? Now, as he says, when people are asked this question, usually their first response is, well, what does it matter? I couldn't do it anyway. Nothing's going to happen. So whatever it is, so the questioning goes nowhere. But so you'd have to rephrase the question so that they can't duck out of it and say, if there were no roadblocks or obstacles, you've probably been to one of these seminars where somebody says, if you were multi-millionaire, money was never a problem, what then would be your best invention, or what then would you do? and actually creating this, what you're doing is creating a future, is more energizing than anything you could possibly imagine. It's worth all the vitamins and minerals and hormones and supplements and anything you could ever believe. It's worth far more to you. And in fact, a person with a purpose and some drive and some reason to live will go forward and will exceed anybody of any age group that doesn't have a sharply focused future with a magical, bright purpose in it. You know, you can't live forever on just vitamins, nutrition, supplements, and so on. But you can live almost forever if you have a purpose. You can certainly live it beyond this lifetime, for example. You know, I've encountered people who can well remember being alive before, having other incarnations, and they remember exactly what it is they're trying to do, and they're still trying to do it. So, you know, it can exceed a lifetime. Trust me. So anyway, Rappaport's answer for himself was, you know, he wanting to write. But right at the beginning there, he had a choice, and I also faced this choice. Do you want to be commercial? Do you want to write a bestseller? In other words, you just fill your book up full of garbage that all the idiots want to read. You know, thrillers and murder stories and all that kind of intrigue and stuff. Or do you want to write something worthwhile that will actually change a person's life when they read it? Well, Rappaport made his choice. He said, screw that, I'm going to write what I want. If I don't sell a single page of writing, that's fine. I'll write what I want. And he chose that. Well, I've got to tell you, I made exactly the same choice. Years ago, I was faced with, you know, do I want to be like, you know, Joe McCullough and Julian Whittaker and Stephen Sinatra and so on. You know, I could sell millions of books, make shed loads of money, but where's the inspiration in that? You know, I live for the day, every day when I wake up, for the connection with spiritual purpose, for connection with the sort of, you know, the God viewpoint on high. What am I here for? What is I want to do? What is my mission? Let's get on with it. So me and Rappaport, in a sense, are on the same page like that. Well, the question is, for you, what is your best invention? What would be your creation? What should you be doing? And if you're not sure, maybe higher power's trying to tell you, well, join with somebody that does have a good purpose, you know, something that's really worth doing. And that might be Supernoetics. The gateway for you might be punk psychology. We'll see. But anyway, it's really a mixture of things. I brought in, you know, the what I sometimes call the God structure or God viewpoint. I mean, the point, viewpoint's probably the wrong word, because the God viewpoint is everywhere. Every single micro particle of the universe is a viewpoint of God. It's only us that has a single viewpoint, you know, peeping, as I say, peeping out through the eyeballs into the physical world. We're non-material beings behind that. But anyway, bringing in higher power, there's the question, well, what should we be doing? What would higher power, what would an all-wise, all-knowing power entity want me to be doing? What should I be doing? I'm very clear about what I should be doing. There's no arguing, there's no ducking it, there's no evading it, and no thinking, that's too much trouble, I think I'll just write poetry or something. You know, I know what I have to do, and it drives me crazy, but I have to do it hour after hour, day after day, year after year. There's no way around it for me. And then what do you want to do? Now, I'm a very lucky person that both are exactly the same thing. I want to do what it is that I should do. I need to do for my own satisfaction what it is that I must do, driven by my purpose. And I hope anyone who's listening to this will eventually get to that point. It's very important. Listen, I've talked a lot about this, so I mean, I think I should really write up and express and share this with you. I think it's very important, because you can say, I think, with conviction, if you can fire up a person's purpose in life, they can go on living almost forever. You know, you can get somebody who's quite moribund and fire up their purpose, and all of a sudden they come back to life, and yeah, that's what they want. You know, people have stepped off their deathbeds, got up out of wheelchairs and said, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And if it's also what you should be doing, because you know you can and you know it's needed, like for me, I know I can do this. I know I can I can transform mankind. You know, my motto for Supernoetics is working towards the purposeful reinvention of mankind. And yes, we can do it on a one-on-one with an individual and change how they all think. That'll take a while. But on the bigger scale, we need to change education. We need to change what kids are being taught. They're not being taught the nature of being or how to create things. That they're just taught to be sheep and just follow and do as they're told and not question anything. In fact, if you're a school kid, you can get yourself in big trouble by asking questions, whereas in fact it's the one thing that we should be teaching school kids to do. Wow, that was a passionate few minutes, wasn't it? I went a little way up in the glass elevator and looked down on myself there, getting excited and passionate. Hey, that's what makes things happen. Anyway, I think I was just telling you, what was happening, the webinars and so on. I'm not sure that I can remember now saying there was a Facebook group called Punk Psychology Group. Yes, I did. I remember now. But anyway, on Tuesday of this week, a few days' time from now, I'm going to be meeting with a young lady who's very charming. She comes from Bali in Indonesia. Very sweet. And she's offered to help show me how social media works. See, I know how to write. I write for a minimum of 10,000 words a week of publishable, top quality publishable material. I've always joked I've never had writer's block. I've got writer's diarrhea. I can't stop it. But that doesn't make me a clever management person, not necessarily a leader even, but it certainly doesn't teach me anything about social media, which is its own thing, And I think the way the world is going, you have to push out there on social media if you're going to make it. And if we want 1,000 people integrated with Supernoetics, that's the place to go find them, is on Facebook and Twitter. And then from there we grow it to 10,000, then 100,000 and so on. That's how it seems to work. That's not to say we won't have websites and we're not going to have online webinars. We are. Online videos and teachings, yes, all of the above, and books that you can buy and download. Listen, torrents of free stuff that you can download. All that's in the pipeline, as it were, coming because I want to share, and I want to share a lot, as much as possible, as fast as possible, basically. One other thing to say, because it's newsy, is we do have a seminar, or a workshop, I should say, for May. Those of you close friends in the know will know that Vivian and I are off to Greece for her, well, it's one of her big birthdays. I don't think I should say what number, except you wouldn't guess within 20 years, I don't think, how old she is really, or how young she is. Anyway, the promise was to take her to Greece. For my 70th birthday, she took me to Egypt, which was absolutely marvellous. I've never been before. And apart from one quick visit to one island, Viv's never been to Greece before. And a lot of my philosophical heart is in Greece. One of my spirit, I don't want to say a spirit guide, is a spirit buddy, really, a companion, came to me in a fire of flames in an old Greek temple about 2,500 years ago. We've been buddies ever since, and I've often said on record that he's one of the things that makes me clever and knowledgeable. It's not all just down to me being boastful. Why am I saying that? Oh yes, Viv's birthday present. Listen, for a moment I went off down the timeline there. It was 2,500 years ago in a fire in a temple. Quite scary. So we're out for April. This will be 4th of April through to the end. When we come back right at the beginning of May, we're going to be putting on that workshop, and it will be the beginner's introductory workshop. There'll be some seniors here as well with me helping teach, but it's one of those on-the-spot things. You come to us. We have this wonderful facility where we live. Our house is very large, very beautiful, pool and spa and huge dining room. We've got an enormous mezzanine, which makes a classroom. And it'll be a great pleasure to welcome you all here and have some fun in the mid to late spring before the summer heat of Las Vegas strikes. All of this will be made clear to you in writings, through emails and postings, and if you're on the Facebook page and the Facebook group. Plenty of postings through that too. Okay, so I hope that gives you a quick outline of what's going on just now, and I hope it excites you more than a little bit. I'm very excited with just what's happening now. It seems that we're on the absolute brink of an exciting roller coaster ride down, shooting down, accelerating as we go downhill. Very exciting, very, very exciting. All right, thanks very much for listening. Take care.